I never knew my life could turn upside down so fast. It was just another day at work, closing up, the normal grind in the hardware store I operated. I shut the front entrance, switched the sign to closed, and let my mind drift to the calm night. Ahead with Claire. Maybe we'd watch a movie, split a pizza, nothing fancy, just us. That's all I wanted after a long shift. My vehicle rumbled down the familiar road to our modest house, the porch light blazing like it usually did when she was waiting for me. I smiled to myself, thinking how blessed I was to have her, even if things hadn't been ideal lately. But when I pulled into the driveway, something felt off. Adrian's sleek black automobile was parked there, taking up half the place like he owned it. My stomach twisted, but I shook it off. He was my brother. Maybe he just stopped by to say hey. I went through the door, my boots still dusty from work, and there he was, Adrian. Standing in my living room, arms crossed, that confident sneer, painted on his face. Claire was next to him, her arms full with my belongings, my jacket, my work boots, even the framed photo of us from our honeymoon. Before I could open my mouth, Adrian's voice pierced through the air like a knife. A weakling. Claire, leave him tonight. I'll show you what a genuine man is. I froze. My head scrambled to make sense of it. Was this a joke? Some messed up prank? But then Claire laughed, a harsh, cold sound that hit me harder than any punch. She didn't even glance at me as she dumped my belongings onto the porch. The photo frame clattered against the wood. "Don't be so theatrical, Logan," she said, her voice dripping with impatience. "You had to know this was coming." I stood there, stunned, watching her move like she'd rehearsed this. Adrian didn't say another thing. He just leaned against the wall, observing me, like I was some pitiful animal. Caught in a trap, my eyes darted between them. The woman I'd loved for 8 years. The brother who'd spent his whole life trying to prove he was better than me. My palms tightened into fists, but I didn't move. Not yet. "Claire," I managed to say, my voice hoarse. "What the hell is this?" She didn't even turn around, just started piling my life into a heap outside. "It's over, Logan. Just go. Over. Just go after everything we'd built. The house, the late-night talks about kids, the promises we made, and Adrian. Adrian stood there like he'd won some kind of trophy. His eyes dared me to do something about it. I stepped onto the porch, the cool night air hitting my face as I gazed at my things lying across the steps, my work bag, my favorite cup, even the toolbox I'd spent years filling, all tossed out like trash. Behind me, I heard Adrian chuckle. Low, smug. "See? Told you he wouldn't. Fight back." Claire didn't answer, but I could feel her agreement in the way she slammed the door, shutting me out. Of my own damn house. I wanted to shout, to kick the door down, to grab Adrian by his dumb leather jacket and make him bleed. But I didn't. I just stood there, breathing hard, my heart thumping in my chest. They thought I was weak, that I'd just take this, walk away like some kicked dog. I bent down, scooping up the photo frame. The glass was shattered, splitting me and Claire right down the middle. I stared at it for a long time. The rage inside me boiled until it wasn't just rage anymore. It was something more, something clear. They had humiliated me, tore my life apart like it was nothing. But they didn't know me. Not really. I wasn't the pushover they thought I was. I had spent years holding back, keeping the peace, letting Adrian have his tiny victories because he was family. And I didn't want the drama, but this was war. I gathered my belongings, stuffing them into the back of my truck. The engine roared to life, louder than I meant it to. I drove out of the driveway, tires kicking up gravel. I didn't know where I was heading yet, but I knew one thing for sure. They'd regret this. Claire thought she could toss me aside. Adrian thought he could walk all over me. They were wrong. Horribly wrong. I wasn't weak, and I wasn't done. This wasn't the end of me, it was the beginning of them learning just how much they had underestimated me. I clenched the steering wheel, knuckles white, and drove into the darkness, already thinking about what I'd do next. They wanted to play dirty? Fine. I'd play better, and I'd win. He'd always treated Adrian like the son he never had, given him a nice job straight out of school, fast-tracked him to a supervisor role, even talked about granting him greater authority someday. Adrian loved it, parading about in his hard hat, yelling instructions like he'd earned it instead of just being handed it. I'd never cared much. Richard was kind enough to me, but I wasn't the sort to beg for favors. Now, though, that favoritism was my way in. I went through the emails seeking something particular. Myra's material was personal, but I needed dirt. Something had hit. Adrian at work. There it was, a succession of messages from a few weeks back. Adrian DeClaire rushed out early today. Richard's too busy to notice. Another one. Directed the staff to handle it. I'm not babysitting them fools. Then, CLA laziness much. And him? Why work hard when you don't have to? I smirked. Wonderful. It wasn't about the affair. This was about him being reckless, sloppy, the kind of guy who didn't merit the trust put in him. I copied the texts, tidied them up so they didn't mention CLA, and composed an email. Hey, Uncle Richard, I typed, keeping it casual. Found some stuff you might like to view about Adrian. Didn't want to bother you at home, but it's not good. I attached the screenshots and pushed send, my pulse pumping up as the small whoosh sound indicated it was gone. I fell back, staring at the ceiling. Richard was old school. Didn't mess around when it came to his business. He'd hired Adrian on purpose, but if he thought the golden boy was slacking off, that faith would dry up fast. Sure enough, my phone buzzed an hour later. Richard's name flashed up. Logan, what's this about? He questioned, his voice gruff, but intrigued. Simply read it, I said, playing it cool. Thought you should know, he growled. The line became quiet for a second. Appreciate it. I'll handle it. That was it. No lecture, no questioning. I figured he'd delve into it, perhaps. Call Adrian in for a conversation. By the end of the day, I got word from a buddy who worked there. Adrian's huge promotion, the one he'd been talking about for months, was off the table. Richard had reconsidered after some issues came up. I laughed out loud, alone in that motel room, visualizing Adrian's face when he heard the news. He'd still have a job, for now, but the shine was gone. No more fast track, no more pats on the back. I could almost hear him trying to explain it away, blaming someone else. But Richard wasn't the sort to buy excuses. I paced the room, the poor carpet gritty under my boots, feeling lighter than I had in days. Adrian felt he was untouchable, but his kingdom was shattering. Piece by piece, Myra ditching him. Now this. It was all falling apart, and he didn't even know I was the one swinging the hammer. My phone rang again, his number this time, but I didn't pick up. Let him stew. Let him worry. I wasn't ready to face him yet. Not until I'd taken more. I sat back down, my mind quickly skipping to the next step. CLA was still out there, probably assuming Adrian would stick by her now that I was gone. She'd figure out soon enough. He didn't care about anyone but himself. But that could wait. For now, I savored the breeze, little as it was. They'd kicked me out, laughed at me, called me weak. I wasn't weak. I was just getting started. I was still riding high from knocking Adrian off his pedestal when my phone rang that evening. The motel room was dark, except for the flickering light of the TV. Some old western played on mute. I peered at the screen. Dad. My gut clenched a little. He didn't call frequently, not unless something was up. I picked up, leaning against the wall, the rough paint clawing at my shirt. Hey, Dad, I said, keeping my voice steady. His was anything but. Logan. What's going on with Adrian? He asked, sounding strained, like he'd been chewing on this all day. Myra's family just called your mom, frantic about the engagement being off, and now Richard's contemplating his position at the company. What's happening? I could hear Mom in the background, her voice harsh and worried, possibly bugging him to get answers. I took a long breath, envisioning them in the kitchen. Dad at the table with his coffee, Mom pacing by the sink. Adrian had always been their pride and joy, the one they set their dreams on. Growing up, it was always, Adrian scored the winning touchdown, or Adrian got into that posh college. Me? I was the afterthought, the soft one. The child who didn't cause trouble, but didn't shine either. I mended vehicles, mowed the grass, kept things running,